Well, the ADT came in later than the 80s, came in the 90s, but there's been significant change in administrative law. The growth has been exponential, and so much so that the Supreme Court, Justice McClellan, when he was head of the Commercial Division about 7-8 years ago, did the numbers, and the cases were going from something like 50 or 60 to 250 in 1 year that we examined, and the cases are demonstrably getting larger and larger in number. So the Supreme Court is getting busier. Many more practitioners are being schooled in administrative law at the practice level. They forgot what they learnt at law school, everyone does, but they are now being faced with administrative law cases. For example, in personal injury, you wouldn't think it had anything to do with administrative law, but workers' compensation is now a commission, not a court, and everything they do is justiciable in the Supreme Court. Motor accidents is now first and foremost a quasi-judicial tribunal. You have to go through the medical assessments, binding statutory decision-making, and the CARs, which are claims assessments. They give you the money, and they are quasi-judicial tribunals. Everything they do is justiciable. So there has been a phenomenal growth in administrative law in New South Wales. The biggest development is Kirk and the Industrial Relations Court of the High Court. That decision entrenched judicial review at the federal constitutional level in New South Wales and in each of the states, relying on Section 73 of the Constitution for state courts to be entrenched with the power to quash government decision-making. That is sensational, because one can take away judicial review. Before that, one can't anymore. The Constitution protects it, the High Court's protecting it. That's given it, street cred is the legal term, and we can look to a solid future in judicial review in New South Wales. Secondly, the current High Court, just recently in Lee, LI's case, has decided that Wednesbury unreasonableness as a ground of judicial review is not good enough. They're going to rely on just unreasonableness. Wednesbury unreasonableness no more. The future is going to be, in this area, unreasonableness as a ground of judicial review. That opens up a whole door which we all, like lemmings, will hope to jump over. It's trite to say they're all interesting. I acted for the Hells Angels in the High Court a couple of years ago. Ultimately, the High Court quashed the Act of Parliament in New South Wales. It quashed the whole Act, not just a section of it, which it did in Totani for the Finks in South Australia. It quashed the entire Act, said this provision is so bad that nothing can survive it, which I find unusual. I was briefed to appear for the Hells Angels in the Supreme Court. There were proceedings under the Act to declare them a declared organisation, which means a bad organisation, which means the members can't talk to each other once that happens. Justice McClellan heard the case, and it was in Banco Court. And on day one of the hearing, my clients were there, so there were 30 of the Hells Angels. There were only 60 at the time. So 30 Hells Angels in full colours sitting in Banco Court on one side. The police of New South Wales in their blue uniforms were sitting on the other side of the court, about 30 of them. The other 5 were out writing parking tickets out the front for the Harley-Davidson bikes. And in the middle were 20 representatives of the Australian press and their barrister down on the bar table. And it was quite a sight to see. And the first thing I did was to hand up the sealed summons that we'd filed the day before in the High Court to say that His Honour can't be appointed because the legislation's invalid and everything's invalid. And he adjourned the case to allow me to run the High Court case, which I did 2 months later. The High Court handed down its decision soon, so the whole thing was annihilated. It was very satisfying. There isn't, in my particular life, there isn't much outside the law so badly that I'd have to think seriously about that. It's technology, which I do use in my work, but I think technology rules outside, apart from family and friends, and good food and wine, which you can obviously see I enjoy.